All right. Hi, folks. I'm Brandon Valentine from Workbrew. I really appreciate you coming in to see this demo today. As you can tell, there are going to be no slides. This is a true demo, and unfortunately, we don't have as much time as I would love to have with all of you. So I'm going to ask that you hold your questions till the end. I'm going to try to get through a lot of information here. But before I launch into this demo, I just want to say my first public demo of this product was 1 year ago at MacAd. So I'm really glad to be back with all of you. For those who didn't see it last year, or who did see it last year, we have a lot of exciting new things to show you. So really quickly, show of hands, how many of you have developers using Macs in your organization? All right. Keep your hand up if they're using Homebrew. Pretty much all of you, right? Okay, so let's talk a little bit about Homebrew, and then we're going to talk about Workbrew and why we exist and what we are doing about Homebrew. So if you are familiar with Homebrew, you might know that there are 16,000 individual pieces of software available in it. Not all of them are things you want in your enterprise environment. So just right there, those are all of the ways I can defeat network security in your company. I can even do some things that are worse. So I could, with a number of these commands, attach this Mac right here to the public internet. I can go grab a public IP, run a service here, bypass the entire network stack. So Homebrew is incredibly valuable and useful for developers, but it probably scares most of us in the room to think all of this is just on demand, at will, available. So Workbrew allows us to put some guardrails in place around what's available and how it can be used. So one of the things I want to point out is this is real open source Homebrew. This is not a fork. We did not create a bunch of overhead to maintain a fork of Homebrew. This is the real thing. But Homebrew itself knows about Workbrew. So I'm going to try to call Homebrew here. I'm going to try to install a package. I'm not allowed to do that. Workbrew is managing this Mac. So I have to call Workbrew instead. So Workbrew is in my path. So let's do that same command again. I want you to notice when I hit return here, there's going to be a brief pause before this executes. It was very brief, but what happened there is my Mac went out to the Workbrew SaaS and said, I belong to Workbrew, here's my serial number, what policies apply to me? So every time a user interactively asks for software, we are going to go get the latest policy, and we're going to compare what they asked for against that policy. So in this instance, I'm allowed to install Figlet, so that should be on my device. It works. But the more interesting thing is, what if I want to install something that I'm not allowed to have? So we're going to try to install this pwgen package. If you don't know what this is, it's just a very weak password generator. We would never let someone use this in 2026. I'm not allowed to install it. So I get an error message. Now, who forbid the installation of this? Well, John is our CEO, right? We all go bark at John. But this is customizable. This would say the endpoint experience team, the client engineering team, whatever you call yourselves internally. It's going to tell me what policy I'm violating. So if I want to complain about it, maybe I do actually need this thing. I can give a little bit of context. And this whole contact us line here, this is also customizable by you. So you can push people to a chat room, but you can give them a URL to open a ticket, to do whatever is useful inside of your company to take action about this. What you'll find is that most developers kind of know if they're stepping in a gray area. If they're trying to install something they probably shouldn't have, you'll just never hear from them. But if this is a legitimate tool they need to do their job, now you've pushed them somewhere productive. So this is cool, but like, what can we do with the fact that we're now on the device and people are interacting with Workbrew and not Homebrew? Well, that's what this is all about. So we call this the Workbrew console. This is the SaaS management plane for Homebrew at scale across your fleet. So I'm sure all of your eyes are immediately drawn to this vulnerability data at the top. So let's go look at that and what we can do about it. So we'll jump in here, and you'll see that we have known package vulnerabilities in our fleet. So if we come through here, you can see 5 devices in this fleet have an old version of OpenSSL. Well, what's wrong with OpenSSL? Quite a few things, right? It's always OpenSSL. Was anyone operational when Heartbleed happened? Like I was. It was a nightmare, right? So we don't have to accept this. We don't have to leave this here. We can instead patch this. So I can come in, schedule a command to upgrade OpenSSL. You'll notice it's only going to target the people who actually have this vulnerability. So you see those 5 devices there. When you have thousands of Macs, you don't need the extra network traffic of trying to do all of this. And what's interesting is you'll see there's this grayed out date and time here. If this is a 0 day, I'm going to leave that grayed out. I'm going to do this right away. But maybe this is not a 0 day, and maybe I'm a bit nervous about impacting the productivity of my developers. I want to do this at a safe time, or I want to give them a chance to do it before I do it for them. Well, in that instance, I can say, okay, maybe I'm going to give them until next Friday the 1st at midnight. I can schedule this in the future, and now I can communicate to all the people affected. Hey, I need you to upgrade OpenSSL. You have a week. If you don't do it by this time, don't worry about it. We're going to do it for you. I can create this, schedule this, and now I don't have to remember next Friday at midnight to do a thing. My job is done. Workbrew is going to take care of it for me. So let's look at some of the other things that we can do here in Workbrew. Yes? Yes. Let's say I'm really worried about OpenSSL. We can just upgrade that every day. All right. So it's one thing to be able to act on the vulnerabilities, but a lot of us get asked, okay, you convinced me to invest in this Workbrew product. It's renewal time. What did we get out of our investment? Workbrew keeps an excellent audit history of everything that happens related to Homebrew activity, including and most especially vulnerabilities. So we log when they were detected, we log when they were patched, and we give you that data. This data can go into external systems. There's a REST API to get at it. There are webhook deliveries around it. But also, maybe more interesting in 2026, is you can just get the CSV and go to town in Claude Code and say, give me 10 slides for my management about how we did patching vulnerabilities in our developer fleet. Yeah, it's that easy now, right? All right, so let's look at some other things here. So once Workbrew is out in your fleet, within the first 15 minutes, all of these devices register themselves, and they provide a complete inventory of all of the Homebrew information that's going on that device. So you can see Petros here. Petros is on our support team. If there are customers in the room, you probably know him because he is excellent. He is like always first responder. But let's go look at his Mac. So we have a little bit of metadata about some versions of things on his Mac. But more interestingly, we know all of the Homebrew packages that he has and the current status of them. We also can take this same information and, more interestingly, give you a fleet-wide roll-up. This is every bit of open source developer tooling that is in your fleet. So you can see what's popular, what's maybe more interesting if you're looking for sources of risk in your company, is to sort this by what's not popular. What are the outliers? What are the things that only 1 or 2 people are doing, right? So we can sort of scroll through here, and like right away it jumps out at me, like Bo has OpenConnect installed. That sounds like a thing he shouldn't have. I'm not sure what it is, so I'm going to click in and find out. And look at that. We don't use Cisco AnyConnect at this company. That's a red flag, right? So what do I want to do about that? Well, if I've just rolled out Workbrew, I might want to cool my heels for a minute and actually audit this stuff. But if this has been going on for a while, maybe I just want to not allow Bo to have that anymore. So now I can create a deny list right from that information. I can ban it everywhere. I can also be more specific. All of you in this room have groups in your MDM already. Maybe you have static groups, maybe you have smart groups, a mix of both. Workbrew will bring all that information over for you, let you set these policies based on the work you've already invested in your MDM. You don't have to duplicate that effort over in Workbrew. So I can create this policy, I can remove this thing. So let's look at some of the other features here. So one of the things we all get asked to do as IT admins is automate deployments. We talk a lot about what is our default build? Like when a new Mac shows up, what software is going to be pushed to that Mac on day one? Well, Workbrew does the same for developer tooling. So I can come in here and I can collaborate with my engineering team on this. I can even give the engineering managers a login to come do this themselves. So I can come in here and say, everyone on this development team needs this particular version of Python. Maybe they all need Claude code, right? And I can start to build up a catalog of that default Mac build for a developer at my company. If any of you have tried to do this in your MDM, you end up chasing your own tail. There's a lot of dependencies that go into making all of this stuff work. We make all of that go away for you. So not only can I build up this automated onboarding, but I can have sort of a Venn diagram of default builds for developers. So let's say that this particular team is the web developers, right? I can go find their group. You'll notice I have this run on new devices box checked. This does two interesting things. One, if we hire a new developer, I go to Apple Business Manager, I get them a new Mac, pre-stage it, shows up, open it up, it's going to enroll itself in my MDM. The MDM is going to put Workbrew on it right away. Workbrew is going to wake up and say, hey, I'm new here. What am I supposed to have? And it's going to start grabbing the dependencies from any of these brew files that have been tagged for that device. So in my experience, and the way that Workbrew is architected, we don't actually need the local user account to exist to start doing this. So if you're on a decently fast internet connection, while your user is going through Setup Assistant and saying, no, I don't want to enable Ask Siri, thanks Apple, but no, they're putting in their managed Apple account credentials, maybe. We can actually get all the developer tools on their device in the background. So if the internet connection is fast enough, they can finish Setup Assistant, get to a Mac desktop, and everything they need to do their job is there on day one. Most developer organizations today have a wiki page somewhere. It's like, welcome to the company. Step 1, install Homebrew. Step 2, here's 50 things you need to do your job. That becomes the first week on the job for those developers. They're very expensive developers. The company would like them to be productive right away. Workbrew can help you offer that. Oh, and I'll mention, it's not part of the demo today, but even cooler, you can put all of this in a Git repository. There is an API to manage these things. There's a GitHub action to manage them via the API. And your developers will love you because the process of adding a new tool to this stack becomes open a pull request and ask for permission. All right, so we talked about policies. I'd like to make policies real for you for a minute. How many of you know what a Homebrew tap is? You'll have to forgive the pun, Homebrew, taps, casks, like, we love our puns. So a Homebrew tap is a collection of installable packages, right? It's just a container for packages. What it really is a Git repository full of Ruby files. And those Ruby files contain the instructions for where do I download this thing, how do I build it, how do I install it. So the official open source project has two of them, Homebrew Core and Homebrew Cask. You can see, if you scroll all the way right, that's the 16,000 available things we're talking about. It's growing every day. But you can think of these two repositories as pretty darn safe. There are thousands of open source contributors looking at them constantly. There's CI, there's vulnerability scanning, like, there's good operational practice around these two repositories. But anybody on the internet can publish their own Homebrew tap. And you may not realize it, but right out of the box, your developers who have Homebrew can say, you know, let's give an example, Cirrus Labs here, right? There is no restriction in open source Homebrew on me doing this. And so the minute that you install Workbrew, you're going to get this information, whether you want it or not, because you should have it. This is the biggest security side door in open source Homebrew. So some of this stuff is legitimate. Cirrus Labs, they make virtualization and CI stuff for the Mac. Heroku, they distribute their developer tools this way. So does Stripe. You can see a lot of familiar names here. But as you get a bit deeper, you will see things that you don't recognize. I don't know who this is. I should probably go investigate that, right? We will give you the ability to audit this stuff, but more importantly, do something about it, right? So let's go create a policy. We're going to create an allowed taps policy. So you'll see here the two official open source taps. You will also see two what we call private taps. So this is a feature of Workbrew. We will allow you to use the plumbing of Homebrew to distribute your own tools. So if you have internal developed applications that you need out in your fleet, you're welcome to package them and distribute them through your MDM, but it can often be worthwhile to invest in writing a Homebrew formula. We can just automate the packaging of that for you. So you'll see here, I'm creating this policy type. Let's add a few more things that we deemed safe from that audit that we did, right? Now, if I create this brew policy and I go run brew tap and it's not on this list, I'm denied. I have to come talk to someone in IT. I have to ask for permission to use that third-party software. And right away, we've plugged the biggest security side door in Homebrew. So we also have the ability to do ad hoc remote management. So we've been looking at, how do we put guardrails in place? How do we patch things? Sometimes you just need to fix something fast. So I had a customer this month, a large American insurance company, dealing with an active security incident. And the order came down from on high, just remove this package everywhere. We don't know if it's the problem yet, but it's too risky for us to even think about letting it exist, right? So before I worry about what our policy is going to be and who has this and whatever, let's just get rid of Axios everywhere, right now. I can do that. All 28 devices in this fleet are now waiting on a command to execute to uninstall Axios. And very similar to some of your MDMs, we have about a 15-minute resolution time for this. So unfortunately, our demo is not long enough for me to come back here and show you, but believe me, it works. If you want to schedule a demo with me later, we can show you that. So a few other things that I think are really nice to know about Workbrew. One of them is actually here. What I want to show you is this. So we have a very nice native Slack app. So if you are a Slack user, you can get all of the actionable information from Workbrew in a Slack channel. And by actionable, I mean there are links in every alert that you get directly to the applicable part of Workbrew for you to make a decision or take an action. But more critically, for those of you who are not Slack users, anything that can receive a webhook can receive any lifecycle event from Workbrew. So you can deliver all of these things to a Teams channel. You can deliver it to your SIM. You can deliver it to all of those other systems of record that you already have in your company. We're very sensitive to like the one more dashboard fatigue that we all have. So the goal here is to actually get the information that you need to act in Workbrew in the place you're already looking. So we've got, I want to say, about 10 minutes remaining, and I want to do just a couple of things, and then I want to do a Q&A, so we're going to leave plenty of time for that. One of the things that I want to show you is the ability to request access to software. So, you know, I've been showing you sort of what it looks like when you don't have access to something, but something that just recently launched in Workbrew is the ability to ask for software. So let's say I'm a web developer and the only browsers that are approved at our company are Safari and Chrome, right? But I need to test something in Opera because I'm a web developer, and in theory, there are Opera users out there who might visit our website. So I have just requested access to the package that I can't currently install. And we will come in here to package requests. And right there, Brandon has asked for access to Opera. Now, I can do this natively in Workbrew. There are lifecycle events and API events around this. So this could happen in ServiceNow. This could happen in some other system. Although it's pretty painless here. Let's come in here and like, what is this thing? Well, they've asked, it's a web browser, okay. We probably all know what Opera is, but they're gonna ask you for stuff you don't know what it is. So we're gonna give you a little bit of information. But more critically, I can decide whether everyone can have this, whether maybe just my engineers can have this, and say, please write a better audit log entry than that. But here I can approve this, and that will now be available to everyone in that group. And more importantly, the record of that happening now exists in the audit log. So there we go. I approved a package request, and as a side effect of doing that, I created the first policy for this engineers group. So you'll see a very rich audit log here. You know, Workbrew is as much a compliance product as anything else, and we're trying to do what we can to give you the information you need to be successful with compliance. So I think this is maybe a good moment to pause and start taking some questions. I find that Mac admins have a way of finding the corner cases in the product, and that's maybe a more interesting discussion from here. So please do make sure you speak into the microphone so we can hear it on the recording and so the rest of us can hear. I see Dan from Barclays up here already has a question.
You probably know this about us anyway, but for other people's benefit, we're a very much an attribution organization. So any kind of permissions, privileges are all about the colleague who who is allowed to do this thing. I know Workbrew is very, very device-based, you know, as is Jamf. What kind of ability do we have to, shall I say, bastardize, to make some of the policies and so on more user-focused rather than device-focused?
Yeah, so today there's a limited capability to do that. You can use device groups to make this happen. So I know that you're a Jamf customer. So Jamf Smart Groups will enable you to build smart groups that will include all of the devices that that user owns, not just an individual device. You know, I will say that there are debates going on about to what extent we may have a user concept in the future. But one of the things, I know all of you are going to have to like do some vendor due diligence and security due diligence on us if you want to do business with Workbrew. We're very used to that. We don't have any PII about your users. One thing that maybe goes underappreciated when I'm in the terminal showing you this is that I was never asked to log in to anything. As an end user, I have no relationship to Workbrew. I don't know who your users are. I don't know their names. I don't know their email addresses. All I maybe know about them is their device name, and that's up to you. And most of you are going to have an asset tag or some other thing in your device name. So that's why I do think in the future there's a conversation to be had about whether we should have a relationship with your user and whether that's a thing you'll opt into, right?
Yeah, no, that answers it. I mean,
yeah.
Possible roadmap later.
Yeah.
Hi, Brandon. Sorry, I'm not sure if it's just my visual impairment that didn't see this, but when you made the request, is it possible to put in a justification of why you need it as opposed to just say, I need app X?
It's not, but that is an excellent note. Yeah. David, are you going to write that down? Yes.
Hi.
Yeah.
Developers are obviously known for playing with things and changing things. How tamper-proof is it? What's the kind of enterprise connection of it to secure
Excellent question. So this opens the door for a discussion about whether or not your developers have local admin on their Mac, right? So if they do not have local admin, if they are a standard user, it is almost entirely tamper-proof. I would say the more creative your developers are, the more enterprising they are at working around the other controls you have in place. If you give them local admin, they can defeat this. However, when they defeat this, we do an excellent job of detecting that. We will tell you something's not right with this device. You'll get a chance to go remediate that. And what we find is that in most organizations, there's an element of trust in giving someone local admin, whether it is just-in-time privilege escalation, whether it is like ongoing local admin, and that's a violation of the trust, right? And that becomes sometimes more of an HR issue than a security issue. Workbrew is intended to be the paved path for your developers to get this software. It's intended to be the safe way for them to do it. But if you give them sudo, they're going to try, right? So as long as we can catch it, as long as you can remediate it, you will be safe. What I will also say is, you know, the last couple WWDCs, Apple has talked a lot about declarative device management, introduced new capabilities around that. I think we're all excited to see what they're going to do this year. One of the things they've announced and doesn't quite work as advertised yet, although I'm really hopeful that the next version of macOS will fix some of these things, is the ability to SIP protect configurations and even binaries on the disk. And so Workbrew has an open line of work to try to get all of those protections applied to Workbrew so that even those sudo users cannot tamper with it. However, it requires Apple to deliver a bit more in that area. So we have spun it up, we have attempted to implement it, it doesn't quite work right, and we can't really ship it to our customers until it does.
Random question. So I heard you, I think it was Dan, I was asking about that relationship between what the users are doing. You said that is a discussion to have later. I'm just curious, much here. Is that applicable for when you have a one-to-many device? Because I would have thought in a scenario where you can quickly identify that device X belongs to Grace B, that marrying up already kind of exists in your estate.
Yeah.
Or am I missing
so-
something? Sorry, I was just trying to think it through.
No, it's very fair. Most of the time, in most of our organizations, it is one user to one device. So functionally, you have what Dan is asking for, but that model can break down. People have multiple devices, and Mac OS, believe it or not, is still a multi-user operating system. So it's also possible to have that situation as well. And what's interesting is that Workbrew does work in the multi-user environment. We have Workbrew customers who use it on kiosks, or if you think about like a clinical environment where people are logging in and out of the same device all the time, Workbrew can sit in the background and it can work for any of those users. The security model is intentionally built that way. And though we are all about developer tools, there are 16,000 things in Homebrew. There's Microsoft Office and Zoom and Slack and all kinds of things that you currently distribute through your MDM are in here. And so for some organizations, it makes sense to just use Workbrew to put those things out in their fleet, on their kiosks, on their cash registers, on their clinical machines. It's not the use case that we're targeting. It's not what we're optimizing for, but you totally can.
I was just going to clarify a little bit on what I said a minute ago. So you won't be surprised to hear that we're quite a large Microsoft house. And in terms of that, what I was talking about in terms of attribution to a specific human being, our source of truth is Entra or AD, depending on which day it is. But so a lot of the requests are around a specific UPN for an individual person, and that then lands them into an AD or Entra user group. So it's that relationship back to the device that I'm interested in, which is a neat segue to the other question, because there is a way for us to do that with Jamf. We can use Entra user groups to create smart device groups. I was going to say, do you want to just tell us a little bit about MDMs of your choice, but I prefer Jamf, and the integrations you've got there?
Yeah, absolutely.
That
in fact,
sounds so much like a placed question, doesn't it?
I promise I only paid Dan in cocktails last night. So, no. So we currently support every MDM in this list. So Workbrew is designed to be MDM agnostic, and that is intentional. Many of you will know that Apple has removed the moat from the MDM vendors. It is now possible, if you have all of your devices properly enrolled, that is a big question, to move from one MDM to another. And we don't want you to be in a position of having to redeploy Workbrew in that scenario. So this is a drop-down intentionally. This particular environment is set up for simple MDM, but I can move it to Jamf, I can move it to Mosel or Hexnode. Hexnode are here, actually. We met them for the first time here at MacAd, so that's cool. So when you set up these integrations, these integrations, first of all, are optional. So we do have customers whose Jamf instances just cannot handle any more API traffic. That is a real thing. So this is optional. But if you connect us to your MDM, we currently only pull in two things for you. We pull in those device groups because we don't want you to recreate that effort. And we pull in your device names because you all have a way that you organize and think about your fleet, and it's not Mac serial numbers, right? We don't want you staring at serial numbers in Workbrew for the rest of your life.
So on the vulnerabilities and also, the health check of the device, do you have Siemens SAW capabilities for, sending alerts, say, into Google Chronicle or into, what are the new ones now, Snowflake and so on?
So not natively today, although I saw it working recently, so it's probably in the near future going to be available on the device. When we first built this, our early customers all had their own preferences for internal communication. So what we built first was the lifecycle events. So you get those webhook deliveries, you can then from there integrate with whatever your native communication platform is. Obviously, we've had a lot of requests for doing that natively. So at some point, we will be in your menu bar, we will be in your macOS notifications, we will be a better Mac citizen in that sense. Yeah.
So if I install this on my estate in the free mode, so I can get the information through that, will my devs come at me with pitchforks, or are they going to be fully aware that Workbrew is now on that device?
Yeah, so that's a fantastic question. First of all, for those who didn't hear him, there is a free version of Workbrew. So you can go out, sign up for it. I know people will say it's free, but they'll say it's free for 20 days or 20 devices or something. There are no limits like that with Workbrew free. It truly is free. And all it gives you is all of the visibility that we were looking at. That package inventory, what's going on in your fleet, who has what. I personally have written dozens of Jamf extension attributes to try to get that kind of information. So probably have most of you. Please stop doing that. Don't reinvent that wheel. Just use Workbrew free. It will give you that data. It will give you that data reliably and on an ongoing basis. But the question is, if I roll that out, are my devs going to revolt? So what I will say is that in my experience, for the average developer, the answer is no. It looks and feels like Homebrew. It doesn't change what they have access to by default. Like, you have to start putting those policies in place, right? And you'll need the paid product to start doing that. However, all of you are already thinking of that like power user developer who is in your support queue all the time complaining. That person, doesn't matter what you install. They're going to have a take on it. And one of the things that generally is the source of this consternation is, if you know Homebrew, it gets installed here in opt Homebrew. It's not owned by me. Like, I am not logged in as Workbrew, I'm logged in as Homebrew. So the fact that I might have some bad habits and I might be used to going in and like directly meddling with things in Homebrew, those are habits I'm going to have to unlearn when Workbrew is on the device. The other thing that is true is, like, if you're the average user, you're not doing something out of the ordinary, we take care for you in our installer of putting Workbrew in the appropriate place in the path, right? So to the average Homebrew user, they won't even know, potentially. The problem comes when people like me, because I myself am a power user, have our own shell configuration where I'm doing my own things with Homebrew. Those are the people who, if they have done this correctly, like, so this thing that I have here where it says shell env at the end of the line, that's officially what Homebrew tells you to do if you're going to put this stuff in your own bash profile or ZSH profile. If I did it the right way, this works. Like, this will just work with Workbrew, I won't even know. The problem is that if I first wrote this shell, config 15 years ago, this wasn't in the documentation for Homebrew, and I just figured it out and YOLO'd something and it worked, and it probably doesn't work anymore. So what we generally recommend is that you take a deliberate communication approach, and also that you do a phased rollout, like you would with any other tool, right? Find the friendly users who are going to give you honest feedback, start with them, work out the kinks. It's also true that, like any other tool, like, you all have like Zscaler running or some other, there's a network environment component to making sure all this works properly before you roll it out everywhere. All right, I think this is officially my time. I don't normally put this URL on the public internet, but I'm going to give it to all of you. If you want to go to workbrew.com www.homebrew.com/demo, you want to have a more in-depth look at this, or maybe you want to talk to me or someone on my team about a specific situation in your company that you're not comfortable talking about in a big audience like this or on a recording, please go do this. We will make time for you. Booking this does not signal an intent to pay us money or become a customer. This is just to have a conversation. Thank you all.